And I think there's a little bit of a misconception with this band. I know the word collective gets thrown around, and super group, and rotating cast of characters. And, in all honesty, David Lowy will be the first to tell you, like, he's wanted to put a band together. And, unfortunately, and I kind of went through this with the band that I was in Union, you know what I mean? Like, he got together with John Stevens and they wrote a bunch of songs, and they're like, okay, we're going to go into the studio and we're going to do this record. And I don't even know the whole history, but they went into a studio and they recorded, and it's like, okay, now you're going to go on tour. Oh, we got to find some musicians. And they threw a band together really quick. And, with most bands, you put a band together and you live for a while and you work together and you write, and then you do an album. And by the time you do the album, you kind of know who's working and not working in the band. And, so there was a bit of a growing process there. Maybe some mistakes were made, maybe some, wrong members were picked. I don't know. But I can tell you, since I've been in the band, like, the one thing that was, like, really appealing to me about this whole thing was, the Dead Daisies manager, David, said, this is a no-stress situation. There's two Davids. There's our manager, David, and our guitar player, David. And he said, when David put this together, and, he's kind of realized he wants great players in the band. But he also realizes too that the one issue with having guys like Marco or Brian or Doug or even Richard and Dizzy in the last lineup, you're having to deal with the possibility of scheduling conflicts. And now, for example, last year we did the record, we went on tour with Kiss. Brian was like, man, like, I've got these prior commitments. And so they were like, all right, man, no stress, don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. We all put our heads together, and there was obviously, because we've been doing this as long as we have a long list of friends that are very talented that we can call and go, hey, Brian can't do this. What are you doing for the next 3 weeks or 2 weeks or 5 shows, whatever? Mm-hmm. And we called Tommy Clufetos, and he came out. He did, that Kiss tour with us, and then as soon as Brian's schedule was clear, he came back. So there really is a core band here. So a lot of the names, though, that you see, like Daryl Jones, Bernard Fowler. Bernard never really sang with the band. He sang with us, but it wasn't like him and I went to Cuba together. And I sang, and I sang a majority of the set, but we kind of took turns. It was mainly just a little kind of throwing the Cuban audience a bone, you know what I mean, by having a couple of members of the Rolling Stones come with us. So there was a couple songs too, like Daryl Jones, him and Marco did the same thing. Marco's like, okay, well, I'll play these, 7 or 8 songs, and you play these 6 or 7 songs. And they just kind of traded back and forth, and it was just a fun night. But there's guys on there too, like Damon Johnson. David couldn't make it for, I don't know whether it was health reasons or whatever, but there was a few shows that we did with Whitesnake. If you remember seeing us last year, Damon Johnson was playing guitar. That was just a couple shows that David, that's our founder, David couldn't make, and he goes, man, so we called Damon. We had Damon come in. Last year we went to Australia, and Richard had a motorcycle accident and broke his collarbone. So we called a buddy of ours, Dave, from this band Baby Animals, and he came in and filled in for Richard. And had Richard and Dizzy not gone back to Guns N' Roses, they'd still be here, you know what I mean? But it's just the way it works out. But it's really not a no-stress thing. And, David's been saying, like a lot of people, we've been doing interviews, and David said, this is the band. This is it. This is the Dead Daisies. And, we're going to continue with this lineup and try and work the scheduling out and continue with this lineup as long as we can. You know what I mean? But the thing with the Dead Daisies is this: the sum is greater than the parts. And we're just, like I said, we're just a bunch of friends. We're writing together, we're recording together, and we've been doing shows and getting a great response, and we want to continue this. And I think we are firing on all cylinders now. We've been, Mark O'Brien and David have been there for, 2 or 3 years now. And, Doug and I are kind of the new guys. But we're all very experienced, and we've been rehearsed a lot, and we're all very easy. That we all talk and discuss everything. Hey, what do we want to do tonight? And we sort it out, and it's just really easy, man. It's a pretty cool, odd situation. It's odd, but it's cool. It works for us. Like we did the last record, Revolution, we wrote it, recorded it, mixed it, and mastered it in like 32 days. I was a little, I don't want to say I was concerned, because I always knew Doug could write and everything, but it's all, until you actually get into a room with somebody, you're not really sure. And we just all came in, and everybody just started dropping their phones and playing little riffs they had recorded on their phones or their computers. And it was crazy. Like, we literally wrote for 3 or 4 days in Nashville. And then we had to go up to New York, do some stuff up there. And, so we got, we were doing like some interviews and business and stuff. But we just set up a rehearsal area for us to go write, and we wrote for like 3 or 4 more days up there. And by the time we were all done, we had about 22 ideas. And we said, all right. And then we went back into the studio with Marty in Nashville. And then we sat with Marty and we said, okay, like, let's hone this, and, what do you hear? And we all kind of voted, and we kind of picked the same, I don't want to say, we picked 12 songs that were kind of just like kick-ass, straight ahead, down the line, and then we just worked on, we actually worked on about 14, but the 12 that you hear, we just thought were, I don't want to say similar, but there was a thread running through them where you're like, boom, 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 boom. And it just worked out. It was easy, and we did this record, same thing. We wrote it, recorded it, mixed it, and mastered it in 5 weeks. When getting Marty involved in it, he just asked, he goes, well, what do you guys want to do? And we're like, we just want an old school, kick-ass rock and roll record. No bones, no frills, just go. And he was like, I'm all about it. And that's what he said. He goes, the thing that I love about the record is, he goes, it's like Aerosmith, AC/DC, Van Halen, and like Appetite for Destruction. It's just, there's not a lot going on. It's just full tilt, go. And that's what turned Marty on. So I think we did the job. We did a good job. I mean, for 5 weeks, the last 2 records, for the short amount of time we had to do both albums, I think we really achieved something really cool. And at the end of the day, like, I don't know where, it's so weird, because for some people, not all, but for some people, they really kind of frown on that. And, they're like, oh, why do you guys do that? And I'm like, well, it's not because we don't have enough fucking material. We could literally go out and play for 4 hours. If we even just played our own material, we could do that. The thing of it is you're absolutely correct. We are music fans. First off and foremost, we're not a super group. We're not rock stars. We're music fans. And we all love the same type of music, classic 70s rock stuff, late 60s, 70s, even some of the 80s stuff. And it's just weird to me, like, somewhere along the way, somebody decided that doing covers live is like a no-no. And we're like, I mean, I have my bands that I grew up listening to, Led Zeppelin, did a lot of cover songs, a lot of old blues standards. They used to do some shit by Elvis Presley. Tip of the hat to their heroes. If you look at Aerosmith, Aerosmith did, you know, Milk Cow Blues, Walking the Dog. These were all old blues things. If you listen to their live bootleg record, they actually do some James Brown, Mother Popcorn, and like all this other stuff. Tip of the hat again. And I remember buying a live record by Grand Funk Railroad. You know, it was called Caught in the Act. And I think it came out in like 1973 or 4. And one of the songs on the record, they had the Locomotion. They also had, an amazing version of Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones. And I think it's weird. Like, I think for some reason people think that, you know, if you're an artist, you're supposed to be envious or jealous or whatever, man. And I'm just like, that's total BS. Like, a good song is a good song. And, you know, so we, you know, like I said, I could go on and on. Pinups by David Bowie. Like, it's mostly cover, or I think it's an entire cover album. And if you look at Van Halen's history, a lot of covers. You know, give me a break. Like, I don't know where everybody started getting so serious about themselves that they were like, no, man, no, I didn't write it, you know, whatever. And we're just like, that's crazy. And to be honest with you, like, we just love music. We love playing. Last year on tour, I can tell you when we were on tour, we did Fortunate Son. We did Hush. We did, there was times we would do All Right Now. There was a couple shows we did a ZZ Top song. We were doing Sick as a Dog by Aerosmith. You know, and it's funny. So, like, David was like, you know, I don't see anything wrong with it. And I was on the same page with him. Like, everybody is. And it's like, all right, you know what? Every record we do, and again, it's not that we couldn't have done 12 of our own songs. We're just like, we're okay with it. Let's do 2 of somebody else's. So we try to do like 2 songs on each record. You know, I was starting to get offers when I was in Australia with the Daisies to bring my band down and do, you know, and play, you know, just a set of John Corabi, whatever, whether it was Motley or whatever. And you know, so we did the show in October. I had some time off, and I basically did that Motley 94 show, and I recorded it on audio and DVD. And I gave it to my record label, Rat Pack, and they loved it. They heard the whole thing. Michael Wagner mixed it for me. It sounds awesome. We didn't do a lot of crazy, like, it wasn't like I went out and I played 10 shows and recorded all 10 of them. We didn't do that. I literally went in. I did a hometown show because I hadn't played there in a while, and I wanted to do this, so I hired an audio company, and came in, and we literally just rehearsed, and then next day went in and played the show. And we did it from top to bottom, and gave it to Michael, and basically there's really, there's warts, there's blemishes on it. It's not perfect, but I kind of wanted to go for like that Aerosmith live bootleg thing. We put it out. It's not out yet. It'll be out, and I wanted to wait, and my record label, my personal record label, wanted to wait until after the Daisies came out to let that thing get rolling, make some noise. And then my record comes out in the beginning of October, and it's called 94 Live, One Night in Nashville. So I'm excited about that, but it's crazy. Like, I got this solo thing, you know, every time I get a break with the Daisies, I go out and I do shows with my solo band. And then I can't really say anything yet because we're still trying to work out the details, but I also got asked to do a TV show, and I have no idea how I'm going to do all this, but I'll try and figure it out.